So in today's episode of Faith on My Friday, we're actually going to be talking about a shopaholic serial killer, because apparently there's one out there that exists. And so her name is Dana Sue Gray. And so I don't know if you actually know about this story. She's not as well known as other serial killers, but this is definitely an interesting case. So let's just go ahead and get started.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares, standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
Dana Sue Armburst was born on December 6, 1957 in Pasadena, California. She would be born to Beverly, which Beverly apparently was like a formal MGM model and starlet with like a very short career. And her father, Russell, was a hairstylist. Unfortunately, the two apparently had several miscarriages before Dana. Beverly was said to be born on March 2nd, 1929 in Olmsted County, Minnesota. I couldn't exactly find where Russell was born or raised, otherwise I would mention it in the story. Sadly, when she was 2, her parents would actually divorce. Apparently, Beverly was the type that would max out her husband's, so Russell's credit cards. And the final straw was when he came home one day and found Beverly fighting with an older woman. And so, of course, because of the divorce, Beverly got custody of Dana, and so she rarely saw her father as a result. And so, of course, because of the absence of her father, she felt that she wasn't getting the attention that she used to. And so, in order to get said attention, she apparently cut a hole, or multiple holes, but at least one hole that we know of, in her mother's, favorite dress. She apparently wet her brother's bed, because apparently she had, a brother, and apparently trashed one of her teacher's classrooms.
Oh, hell no!
When she was still a child, in case the things I haven't mentioned weren't red flags enough, she and a couple friends would actually catapult pets off the roof into a pool. And so at some point when Dana was like 14, about to start entering high school, her mom unfortunately died of breast cancer. And so, of course, her mom basically dies. And this is about 1975. Russell had apparently remarried with a woman named Jerry Amberst, so I remember that name because she comes back later. But, because obviously she's a minor, so she can't stay out by herself, but apparently she had gotten kicked out after she was caught having marijuana. Despite not liking school, having below average grades, getting into fights, experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and forging notes basically saying that she could get out of class, forged it to make it look like her parents wrote it. And so obviously, think about the notes, once they found out it was actually her, she would get suspended multiple times. She somehow still managed to graduate Newport Harbor High School in 1976.
Halfway.
And so after graduating high school, Dana would actually move in with her boyfriend, who's a 23-year-old diving instructor, and was actually helping her pay for nursing school. So, that's nice, because, nursing school is expensive. Unfortunately, she would get pregnant by him, twice. Both times, which he, said, you need to go abort it, which she did, but, she obviously hated. The relationship would soon end, and she would end up dating a windsurfer by the name of Chris Dotson. And so she actually graduated nursing school in 1981. She would actually get a job at the local hospital. And so in 1987, she would actually marry Tom Gray, who apparently was a high school friend, who apparently kind of always had a thing for her. And somehow, despite being, known as being caring by the patients, the people she was caring for, she was described as being controlling by her coworkers. Of course, she was unable to take criticism and didn't want to accept responsibility for any mistakes that she may have made, whether it be major or minor. And somehow, within only a year of getting married, Tom and Dana were already in deep financial debt. And so, of course, Dana was not in contact with any of her biological family because apparently there was a dispute over her aunt who died, and there was a dispute over her will, and I guess who gets what. And so, unfortunately, she would later go and actually have miscarriages, which would later cause her to go into depression and psychotropic. And so, in the spring of 1992, Tom and Dana would eventually split. She would start dating a man by the name of Jim, and Jim apparently was a member of a band he was a member of a band that Tom had created the year prior. Tom and Dana were apparently said to be done in early 1993, and so obviously once they were officially done, that allowed her to move in with Jim and Jason, who is Jim's 5-year-old son. Apparently, she was still like seeing Tom a little bit because apparently there was an affair. She would often go back between the two of them. Tom and Dana would eventually file for bankruptcy.
I declare bankruptcy!
In September 1993 to avoid their Canyon Lake house from being in foreclosure. And November 24th of that year, she would actually be fired from her nursing job after not being able to explain like why pills were missing. She would actually go to a psychiatrist and then would end up being prescribed with Paxil. So now we're at 1994. On Valentine's Day 1994, Dana had actually asked Tom to like meet up because Tom wasn't in contact with her at all. So she asked his parents, and then he said he agreed to go, but like last minute he like didn't go for whatever reason. And so he would later find out that Dana actually had a life insurance policy out on him, and the life insurance policy, it would have been enough to pay for the house that was going into foreclosure.
And
So, of course, because Tom would not die, she wouldn't kill someone else instead. And so her first known victim was 87-year-old Norma Davis, who is the ex-mother-in-law of her stepmother. And so Norma was actually recovering through triple bypass surgery. She was actually stabbed
11 times, as a matter of fact.
One of the knives used to stab her was actually lodged into her neck so bad that it almost caused decapitation.
damn!
And so within an hour of her killing Norma, Dana was already out shopping with Norma's credit cards. 2 days later, a neighbor named Alice would actually find the body, like after being worried about not seeing her, because again, she's in her 80s and she did just have surgery, so. Police thought that maybe like she knew her killer due to their like, it didn't seem like any signs of being like forced entry, so that she let the person in, or they knew their way in somehow. And and then obviously they found a check for like $148 from like Social Security. So they're like, well, it's not robbery, otherwise they probably would have took that. And so Jerry, who was Dana's stepmother, who is Norma's former daughter-in-law, and so Jerry would quickly become a suspect because apparently there was like a Nike footprint, like size 6.5. And when they questioned Jerry, apparently she just happened to wear a Nike 6.5. But of course, as we know, Jerry isn't the killer, but of course they don't know that yet. But of course, they didn't automatically think that it was a woman. It was either a man with like just small feet or a woman. But of course, when it comes to a murder as brutal as this, more times than not, it's usually a man that commits it. At least the murders that we know of. And this is the 90s. This isn't now. So obviously they're thinking originally a man, but just with small feet. And so 2 weeks later, Dana would actually kill a woman on her 66th birthday, June Roberts. She would strangle her with a telephone cord and bludgeon her with a wine bottle while Jason apparently was still in the car. So obviously Jason couldn't be a witness to what happened. She got into the house under the false intention of borrowing a book regarding alcoholism because apparently Norma and Jim knew each other. 2 of her credit cards would be stolen, and there was like a bunch of purchases, like suspicious purchases. So obviously the bank like called June's daughter. The daughter didn't recognize any of it because again, June's like in her 60s. This is stuff that not your typical 60-year-old woman would buy. And so apparently the stuff that was bought was swimsuits, cowboy hats, vodka, and expensive shoes. Of course, the police started going to like all the places where the credit cards were used, and so apparently the description of a blonde woman with in her like 30s that it kept being consistent. And so often she either had like a man, so which assumed to be Jim, but never really, I just like say anything where it said Jim, or a small child, which we now know would be Jason. And so of course the town went into a panic trying to get the elderly out of the area because they saw that like these 2 elderly women were getting killed. So they saw obviously it was a pattern of like elderly women. So of course they're going to get their relatives out of town. So some of them who apparently like couldn't get out of town, they stayed in like groups in like certain houses because like safety in numbers. On March 10th, Dana would actually go into an antique store and she would encounter Dorinda Hawkins, asking for a frame to put for a picture of her deceased mother. She apparently like pointed to a frame that she thought was kind of apparently like the one she needed. So Dorinda like turned around. Dana like wrapped a cord around her neck, tried to strangle her. And so apparently she, but unlike the other victims, Dorinda had actually passed out instead of died. And so she woke up like 45 minutes like after Dana thought that she was dead. And so Dorinda was actually born on July 1st, 1936, and was actually a mother of 8, which was what she said to, like, let Dana keep her live. Like, you know, I'm a mother of 8 children.
Damn.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And Dana had apparently told her that we're not doing this for the money. So that kind of shows like what her motive was. And so of course the only reason we really know that is because of course, like I said, Dorinda survived. So we now have 2 dead victims and a survivor. And so Dana was still like $5 from her pocket from cash, $20 or $25 out the drawer. Some sources says different. And her credit cards that Dorinda had.
I am disgusted.
Of course, because the telephone cord was used, they realized that all 3 of these murders, so Norma, June, and now Dorinda, even though Dorinda technically survived, all 3 of these crimes are related. And so, of course, now that we have a survivor, they went and got like a sketch done to like release to the public to show like what she looks like, to get people to like call in and stuff. And assume like right after that, she went and tried to get her hair dyed red.
Gotcha, bitch!
However, the woman that she went to said like I can't dye your hair because apparently it was too frizzy and apparently could actually fall out.
Perm it up, watch it all fall out. Sew it up, cause it won't grow out.
At this point, March 16th, they were actually already looking at Dana as a suspect because like Jerry was cleared. However, unfortunately, she would actually go kill her last victim, 87-year-old Dana Beebe, by strangling and beating her. And so Dora Beebe was born on January 2nd, 1907. And so Dana had somehow gotten into the house under the false pretense that she needed to look at a map.
The map. I gotta see it, I gotta look at it, see it, and climb onto it.
Because she was lost. And so, Dora had actually started dating, like, after the husband passed away. So I assume he's been dead for at least a decade. Because she had a boyfriend named Lewis, who she'd been dating for, like, 8 years. And so Lewis, sadly, was the one who actually found his girlfriend's body. And so Dana would actually be arrested the next day while cooking dinner for the family. Because at this point, they finally had, like, their, I guess, arrest warrant, you could say. And so while searching the home, they would find jewelry, food, liquor, a ski mask, and apparently a $2,000 purse all in the washing machine, along with many clothing items, several of which apparently the tags were still on them. On July 23rd, the district attorney's office actually requested for Dana to be sentenced to death. She would actually plead like not guilty on April 8th.
Oh my god! Wow!
She would admit to the credit card and bank fraud, claiming that she just happened to find like all the victims' credit cards like nearby a dumpster or something. She would even try to go for like a mental like health defense, telling everything from like her depression to her about the psychiatrist and the medication she was going on. And though she also even claimed to be like very depressed within like that year after her mother died when she was like I think like 14 or 15. She talked about her suicidal thoughts and her need to shop. And so then March of the following year, she would plead not guilty by reason of insanity. 2 psychiatrists would actually say that she was legally insane. Dr. Kaina would diagnose her with severe depression and alcoholism. However, Dr. Forbes would agree, but added unspecified dissociative disorder. And so this is because Dana kind of believed that she was symbolically killing her mother. She didn't fully understand the enormity of her actions. However, the prosecutor mental health person that tested her, they found Dana to be depressed, an abuser of alcohol, and completely sane around the time of the murders. And so somehow complaints of hallucinations and delusions that Dana made didn't come out till like about October 1995. A Dr. Rogers would actually diagnose her with borderline personality disorder. And so, however, because Dana was wearing gloves, she actually asked one of the victims, was she home alone prior to killing her? And discarding the credit cards after the shopping spree was over proves that she knew what she was doing.
Gotcha, bitch!
Apparently at some point in the trial, it was actually said that she said, "I love you" to another woman, which I assumed at first to be Jerry, but apparently it wasn't. And the bailiff apparently said she could be held in contempt for talking to a prisoner, and apparently that woman was soon taken away afterwards, and not much is actually known about the woman or who exactly she is. So on September 8th, 1998, she would change her plea to guilty to not get the death penalty, because again, they were still going for the death penalty. She would get life without parole at the California Women's Institute in Chowchilla, California. In her early years of prison, she was known to be like an aggressor to the inmates and the staff, which, you know, from what we know, that isn't surprising. On January 5th, 2003, Dorinda, the surviving victim, she would sadly pass away at age 66 and was said to be buried at Manfrey Valley Cemetery. She would be survived by all 8 of her kids, 18 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren.
Damn!
in 2014, because either Dana needed the money for whatever reason, Dana would actually sell a signed piece of her underwear for like $250. So it was like her full name and an autograph and then her inmate number.
I am disgusted.
And you would do it too for a check.
And so yeah, not much is actually known about her after that. As far as we know, she's actually still alive. And so yeah, that was the case of Dana Sue Gray, the shopaholic serial killer. I hope you guys learned something new with this case, and I will see you fatal females on the next one. Bye.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares, standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
Silhouettes of you are like a taunt. Never really know just what you want. With you I don't ever feel calm. I can feel the sweat inside my